occupied France abounded with rumors that Coco Chanel was a Nazi collaborator. Her clandestine identity was Secret Agent 7124 of the Abwehr, codenamed Westminster, as such, by order of General Walter Schellenberg, of the Sicherheitsdienst. Chanel was dispatched to London on a mission to communicate to British Prime Minister Winston Churchill the particulars of a separate peace plan proposed by Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, who sought to avoid surrendering to the Red Army of the Soviet Russians. At war's end, upon the Allied liberation of France, Chanel was arrested for having collaborated with the Nazis. September 1944. The Free French Purge Committee, the Epuration, summoned Chanel for interrogation about her collaborationism, yet without documentary evidence of or witnesses to her collaboration with the Nazis, and because of Churchill's secret intervention in her behalf. The Epuration released Coco Chanel from arrest as a traitor to France. Despite having been freed by the political grace of Churchill, the strength of the rumors of Chanel's Nazi collaboration had made it impossible for her to remain in France. So Coco Chanel and her German lover, Hans Gunther von Dinklage, went into an 8-year exile to Switzerland. In the post-war period, during Coco Chanel's Swiss exile from France, Pierre Wertheimer returned to Paris and regained formal administrative control of his family's business holdings, including control of Parfait Chanel, the perfumery established with his venture capital, and successful because of the Chanel name. In Switzerland, the news revived Coco Chanel's resentment at having been exploited by her business partner for only 10% of the money. So she established a rival Swiss perfumery to create, produce, and sell her Chanel perfumes. In turn, Wertheimer, the majority capital stock owner of Parfait Chanel, saw his business interests threatened and his commercial rights infringed because he did not possess legally exclusive rights to the Chanel name. Nonetheless, Wertheimer avoided a trademark infringement lawsuit against Coco Chanel, lest it damage the commercial reputation and the artistic credibility of his Chanel brand perfumery. Pierre Wertheimer settled his business and commercial rights quarrel with Chanel, and, in May 1947, they renegotiated the 1924 contract that had established Parfait Chanel. She was paid $400,000 in cash, wartime profits from the sales of perfume No. 5 de Chanel, assigned a 2.0% running royalty from the sales of No. 5 perfumery, assigned limited commercial rights to sell her Chanel perfumes in Switzerland, and granted a perpetual monthly stipend that paid all of her expenses. In exchange, Gabrielle Chanel closed her Swiss perfumery enterprise and sold to Parfait Chanel the full rights to the name Coco Chanel. Resurgence 1950s-1970s. A Chanel suit, 1965. In 1953, upon returning to France from Switzerland, Coco Chanel found the fashion business enamored of the new look. 1947. By Christian Dior. The signature shape featured a below mid-calf length, full skirt, a narrow waist, and a large bust, stylistically absent since 1912. As a post-war fashion that used some 20 yards of fabric, the House of Dior Couture renounced its wartime rationing of fabric for clothes. In 1947, after the 6-year austerities of the Second World War, 1939–45, the new look was welcomed by the fashion business of Western Europe because sales of the pretty clothes would revive business and the economy. To regain the business primacy of the House of Chanel in the fashion fields of haute couture, prêt-à-porter, costume jewelry, and perfumery would be expensive. So Chanel approached Pierre Wertheimer for business advice and capital. Having decided to do business with Coco Chanel, Wertheimer's negotiations to fund the resurgence of the House of Chanel granted him commercial rights to all Chanel brand products. In 1953, Chanel collaborated with jeweler Robert Goussens. He was to design jewelry, bijouterie, and gemstone to complement the fashions of the House of Chanel, notably long strand necklaces of black pearls and of white pearls, which high contrast soften the severe design of the knitted wool Chanel suit skirt, and cardigan jacket. The House of Chanel also presented leather handbags with either gold-colored chains or metal and leather chains, which allowed carrying the handbag from the shoulder or in hand. The quilted leather handbag was presented to the public in February 1955. In-house, the numeric version of the launching date, Chanel 2.55, for that line of handbags became the internal appellation for that model of the quilted leather handbag. The firm's initial venture into masculine perfumery was an eau de toilette called Pour Monsieur. Chanel and her spring collection received the Fashion Oscar at the 1957 Fashion Awards in Dallas. Pierre Wertheimer bought Batter's 20% share of the Parfait Chanel, which increased the Wertheimer percentage to 90%. Later, in 1965, Pierre's son, Jacques Wertheimer, assumed his father's management of the perfumery. 9. About the past business relationship between Pierre Wertheimer and Coco Chanel, the Chanel attorney, Chambron, said that it had been one based on a businessman's passion, despite her misplaced feelings of exploitation. Thus, when Pierre returned to Paris, full of pride and excitement, after one of his horses won the 1956 English Derby, he rushed to Coco, expecting congratulations and praise. But she refused to kiss him. She resented him, you see, all her life. 9. Coco Chanel died on the 10th of January 1971, at the age of 87. 4. She was still designing at the time of her death. Increased. He used famous people to endorse the perfume, from Marilyn Monroe to Audrey Tautou, looking for a designer who could bring the label to new heights. He persuaded Karl Lagerfeld to end his contract with fashion house Chloé. Chanel has partnered with friends and ambassadors over the years, including notable actors, musicians, and other artists: G-Dragon, Jenny Engel, Whitney Peak, Caroline de Maigret, Margaret Qualley, Victoria Song, Wang Yibo, Minji, Go Yun-young, Lily Rose Depp, Keira Knightley, Kristen Stewart, Marion Cotillard, Nicole Kidman, and Penelope Cruz. Post-Coco era 1980s present. In 1981, Chanel launched Entias, an eau de toilette for men. In 1983, Karl Lagerfeld took over as chief designer for Chanel. Like Chanel, he looked into the past as inspiration for his designs. He incorporated the Chanel fabrics and detailing such as tweed, gold accents, and chains. Lagerfeld retained what was signature for Chanel, but also helped bring the brand into the present. In later collections, Lagerfeld chose to break away from the ladylike look of Chanel and began to experiment with fabrics and styles. During the 1980s, more than 40 Chanel boutiques opened worldwide. By the end of the 1980s, the boutiques sold goods ranging from $200 United States dollars per ounce perfume, US $225 ballerina, slippers to 11,000 United States dollars, dresses and 2,000 United States dollars, leather handbags. Chanel cosmetics and fragrances were distributed only by Chanel outlets. Chanel marketer Zhang Hong explained the firm's approach, saying, "We introduce a new fragrance every 10 years, not every 3 minutes like many competitors. We don't confuse the consumer. With Chanel, people know what to expect, and they keep coming back to us, at all ages, as they enter and leave the market." 1980 foresaw the launch of a new fragrance in honor of the founder, Coco. In 1986, the House of Chanel struck a deal with watchmakers, and in 1987, the first Chanel watch debuted. By the end of the decade, Elaine moved the offices to New York City. Maison de Chanel increased the Wertheimer family fortune to $5 billion United States dollars. Sales were hurt by the recession of the early 1990s, but Chanel recovered by the mid-1990s, with further boutique expansion. In 1994, Chanel had a net profit equivalent to 67 million euros on the sale of 570 million euros in ready-to-wear clothes and was the most profitable French fashion house. In 1996, Chanel bought gunmakers Holland & Holland, but failed in its attempt to revamp the firm. 9. The swimwear label. Airs was also purchased in 1996. 34. Chanel launched the perfumes Allure in 1996 and Allure Homme in 1998. The House of Chanel launched its first skincare line, Precision, in 1999. That same year, Chanel launched a travel collection, and under a license contract with Luxottica, introduced a line of sunglasses and eyeglass frames. While Wertheimer remained chairman, François Montané became CEO and president. 2000 saw the launch of the first unisex watch by Chanel, the J12. In 2001, watchmaker Bell & Ross was acquired. The same year, Chanel boutiques offering only selections of accessories were opened in the United States. Chanel launched a small selection of menswear as a part of their runway shows. In 2002, Chanel launched the Chance Perfume and Parfection, a subsidiary company originally established in 1997 to support artisanal manufacturing that gathered together ateliers d'art or workshops including Desruz for ornamentation and buttons, Lemery for feathers, Lesage for embroidery, Massaro for shoemaking, and Michel for millinery. A Prêt-à-Porter collection was designed by Karl Lagerfeld. In July 2002, a jewelry and watch outlet opened on Madison Avenue. Within months, a 1,000 square foot, 90 square meters, shoe handbag boutique opened next door. Chanel continued to expand in the United States and by December 2002, operated 25 U.S. boutiques. Chanel introduced Coco Mademoiselle Andan in between where in 2003, targeting younger women, opened a second shop on Rue Cambon. Opened a 2,400 square feet, 220 square meters boutique in Central Hong Kong and paid nearly $50 million United States dollars for a building in Ginza, Tokyo. In 2007, Maureen Chiquet was appointed CEO. She remained CEO until her termination in 2016. In 2018, Chanel announced relocation of its global headquarters to London. In December of the same year, Chanel announced that it would ban fur and exotic skins from its collections. In February 2019, Lagerfeld died at age 85. Virginie Viard, who had worked with Lagerfeld at the fashion house for over 30 years, was named the new creative director. Viard departed the brand in June 2024. In December 2021, Lena Nair was appointed Global Chief Executive Officer. In February 2024, Chanel opened its U.S. flagship store dedicated to watches and fine jewelry on 5th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, New York City, near Billionaires Row. In December 2024, Matthew Blasey was appointed the next artistic director of Chanel. 48 previously, he was creative director of Italian leather goods line Bottega Veneta, where his work garnered critical acclaim and commercial success. Chanel introduced Coco Mademoiselle Andan in between where in 2003, targeting younger women, opened a second shop on Rue Cambon. Opened a 2,400 square feet, 220 square meters boutique in Central Hong Kong and paid nearly $50 million United States dollars for a building in Ginza, Tokyo. In 2007, Maureen Chiquet was appointed CEO. She remained CEO until her termination in 2016. In 2018, Chanel announced relocation of its global headquarters to London. In December of the same year, Chanel announced that it would ban fur and exotic skins from its collections. Philanthropy, sustainability, arts and culture. Fondation Chanel is the philanthropic arm of the house. Founded in 2011, some of the organization's key initiatives include promoting greater healthcare advocacy, addressing the disparities in gender-based violence, and accelerating economic agency and empowerment. Fondation Chanel has partnered with organizations in Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Chanel announced June 2021 an anchor investment in the Landscape Resilience Fund, contributing $25 million to farmers grappling with the impacts of climate change. setting a new series of science-based targets. The company also launched the No. 1, the Chanel Beauty and Fragrance line, in 2022, with 97% naturally derived ingredients and eco-conscious packaging designed. The house also announced goals in accordance with the Paris Climate Agreement to reduce its carbon footprint by 50% by 2030 and reduce its emissions from value chain by 40% by 2030 as part of the Chanel Mission 1.5 Climate Action Plan. The brand has pledged to transition to 100% renewable electricity by 2025. The company is also sourcing eco-responsible tweeds, shifting to maritime transport with a goal of 80% shipments by sea by 2024, and supporting land and livelihood projects throughout communities in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. In January 2024, Chanel launched an initiative with the consortium of 15 cosmetics manufacturers called the Traceability Alliance for Sustainable Cosmetics to catalyze traceability in the cosmetics sector, arts and culture. The Chanel Culture Fund is a global program of initiatives and partnerships. Since its inception, the house has partnered with the National Portrait Gallery London, the Centre Pompidou Paris, and the Power Station Shanghai. The fund awards an annual prize, Chanel Next Prize, of €100,000 to 10 artists in the fields of performing and visual arts. Yen Peel, global head of arts and culture, said of the fund in an interview with Harper's Bazaar, "At a time when we are navigating our way through complex, new environments around the world, we know that artists generate transformative ideas that help us envision the way forward." Chanel has always championed the vitality and advancement of the arts, and we now expand that tradition through the fund, with a focus on supporting cultural innovators and pathbreakers who are mapping out what's next.